I was very insecure. I was that way through my whole life. I literally did not know that this was a problem. And a lot of that false humility is because of you wanting to feel lower than everybody else. I was living it as a Christian, and I believed it was exactly the way I was supposed to be. All of a sudden saw what God had been doing in my heart. And what I saw inside of it was the worst thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Richard Harper is with me today, and he overcame insecurities in a way that I would never have anticipated. He challenged the Lord after he was being asked a question and said, "Lord, is there anything wrong with me?" And then the Lord showed him what actually was wrong, and he was shocked. And yet, once he found out, he was able to deal with that. I want you to hear what that is. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Barbara.
Now, at the age of 8, you accepted Christ.
Yes, I did.
Very young, fresh, real. I love it when children accept the Lord because it's so real. It's so fresh. There's no doubt, no struggle. Mm-hmm. So I assume you were raised in a Christian family.
I was. Both of my parents, their parents, grandfathers and great-grandfathers for many years past also.
So that's great. And then yet you grew up Christian, you probably did you knew all the Christianese.
I did.
Yeah, I can talk about that too. So I'm very familiar with that. And yet there were some insecurities in your life. What were you struggling with?
Yes, I was very insecure in a lot that had to do with my size. I was very small. And for my age, I was the smallest kid in the school, even a couple grades lower than me. And I got teased a lot about that. And I think that had a lot to do with me not accepting myself very well. And I began to not accept other things about myself, how I looked, the way that I behaved. My personality began to be shifted more into an insecure personality because of those types of things.
What are some behaviors to be insecure? How did you shape to that?
Well, there's false humility is one of the big ones that comes to mind. You feel like you're being humble. And a lot of that feeling of false humility is because of you wanting to feel like you actually feel lower than everybody else. And you begin to try to please them with this sense of false humility that comes. And it controls everything that you begin to do. And instead of you actually being humble, false humility, you're actually stepping into an area of pride because it's more focused on you. You're not being humble, which is strength, actually. You're being humble in a very insecure way, which causes you to think only about yourself instead of the other people around you. And that is a form of pride.
So it's basically you making yourself feel better or protecting the mask by pretending someone that you are, which looks like you are. It helps everyone, but you're not.
Exactly. It gave me a sense of protection, as you were saying, to keep those feelings that I was having kind of from being, feel like they were completely out of control.
So I've also heard people that are in that situation become bullies.
They can, yes.
But in your case, it went the other direction because you were too small to be a bully.
Well, and I'm a servant-hearted person, so I ended up being more towards the humble. I actually know humility now. I understand it. And then I was believing that was humility, but it was not. I because of my servant heart, I would rather serve people and I would rather help them than go the opposite way. I also feel that and know that it was passed down generationally in my family.
That's interesting. And then, so with the lies that you had, you went actually into missions.
Before I went into missions, yes, I was that way through my whole life. And I actually stepped into going in to get trained for missions while I was still believing all these lies about myself.
And did anybody look through that, or they all believed you?
They pretty much all believed me because I believed myself. It was not an act. I literally did not know that this was a problem. I was not playing this part. I was living it as a Christian, and I believed it was exactly the way I was supposed to be. And so because of that, everybody else saw the sincerity. They knew I was not faking anything. In the church I was growing up in, there wasn't as much understanding of the prophetic that there could have been, that people could have maybe sensed that more.
And pick it up.
Yeah.
The mask you were behind.
Yes.
So you're serving people. Was there fruit underneath the lie that you were living?
Yes, there was. I was teaching Sunday school class. I was going out and evangelizing at times. I was afraid to do it, but I would do it because I knew that I didn't want to look bad to everybody else, and I also knew that God had asked me to do it. And I saw converts. I saw many people that were in the Sunday school and in the youth be convicted by the Lord and changed and brought into a place where they understood and grew in the Lord more.
Okay, so you're going through all that, and then there is this point in your life that it usually escalates to a point.
Yes.
That you know there's something wrong, but there's not really something wrong, and you don't really know how to handle it that moment. Was this you?
Yes, it was. I had a call on my life, knowing that I was supposed to be in the ministry at 14 years old. God had told me He wanted me to be in the ministry, but I was too afraid. And so I did other things instead. And I stayed involved in the church, but I kind of was running and afraid of actually going all the way with what God was calling me to do. I went into the military, and while I was there, I met somebody who really showed an example of somebody that I respected in the way of that they were living their life fully for God. And I was very convicted about how they were going off into missions, and here I'd been all my life just running from it. And so I visited the place where they were, and God showed up, and He gave me a vision of a map I was looking at and told me that I was going to be in missions for the rest of my life. And it changed me at that point, but I was still afraid.
Isn't that
and I was in the
amazing
military at the time.
that God sees more in you as you see in yourself?
Yes.
That He has this whole calling ready for you, all these plans, and you think you're basically not good enough for it, right?
That's true.
So there is a point in your life that you ask a question. What was that question that you asked God?
Yes. I asked God if there was anything in me that I had gone around and not dealt with through my Christian walk, like an issue or a problem, that I had gone around it instead of actually facing it and
What
dealing with
prompted
it.
you to ask that question?
I was in YWAM in a DTS class, which is a
What is-
discipleship training school.
Okay.
It's their initiation class that they do for YWAM. They have speakers come in each week.
And they asked
One
you
of the
that question.
speakers asked that question, or told me that specific thing, that if there's an area in your life that you have not dealt with, then you're still that same age as a Christian in that area. And so I asked
I
God,
want to hear more
show
about
me
that.
that.
There's an area in your life you have not dealt with. A question is asked. How would you respond? Stay tuned. The question is next.
Are you ready to inspire and change lives? You can make a difference for a better tomorrow. God created you for more. You matter. There is an unprecedented pandemic of forgotten hearts. You can bring hope and answers. Inmates feel alone, afraid, and abandoned. Now is the time to find, to stand, to change, and transform lives. God loves them unconditionally. Adopt a Champion empowers inmates to be a champion within themselves, within their family, and in the world. There are 3 ways you can help. Become part of our team, pray, and donate. Together, we can make a difference. You can start today. Go to adoptachampion.org.
Richard Harper is with me here today, and he served in missions and gave it his all. Everybody thought he was the greatest guy ever, but he was actually hiding behind his insecurities. And then there was this one moment he asked God, is there anything that needs to change in me? And what happened with that?
Yeah. Well, when the speaker spoke and mentioned, is there anything that needs to change, that God has, that you've gone around and needs to be changed? I just asked God, if there's anything like that, show me, because I didn't know of anything. And just as I said it, just like that, I felt this numbness come over me.
Numbness.
Completely from head to toe. It was like a shot of Novocaine in my spirit. And I just sat there almost like a zombie. And I didn't know what was going on. But that stayed with me all through that night and all the way the next day until the next evening when I was in that class again.
What was it?
I felt like God put a actual numbness on me so that I wouldn't
God,
feel...
not the devil. God.
God, because he began to do surgery in my heart. I could feel something happening in my heart, but there was no pain involved. It was like a scraping. And I was a little concerned, but more just like curious what's going on. Concerned about the numbness because I was just walking around in a daze. And so I knew something was happening, but I could not feel any pain going on at that time.
So you're in this numbness state the moment you give that to the Lord, that question.
Yes.
Now you're numb. And were you scared? Was it frustrating? Why? What came out of it?
I was a little bit worried at the time, but I could tell God was doing something. And I was too numb to even be scared or worried. It was almost like I had no emotions.
Zero emotions.
Yeah, it was one of the strangest things that ever happened.
So you just sit there? Could you move?
I could walk, but I couldn't converse with people. Or I could, but it would just be in a way of like them talking and me kind of just answering the questions.
I've seen people that are numb. They're numb to everything, no emotions.
Yeah,
Zero.
that's exactly the way I was.
And they can't help it. They just can't help it. So how did you get out of that?
Well, it went through all that night into the next day, and then that next evening I was sitting in the class again. And I don't know what the speaker was saying because I wasn't able to keep up with anything. And all of a sudden that numbness lifted.
Just out of nowhere.
Just like a curtain being drawn up. And I all of a sudden saw what God had been doing in my heart. And it was like my heart had been filleted open. And I could see it just open.
You could see your own heart within you.
I could see my own heart just open. And what I saw inside of it was the worst thing I'd ever seen in my life. I saw how God saw my heart. And it was awful, full of sin. The sin of pride and the sin of taking in lies and all these different things that I didn't even know were in there. And I couldn't handle it. It was such an awful sight. I just all of a sudden fell to the floor and began to sob and bawl hysterically. Tears and snot flying everywhere. And
that's almost too much detail, but it's the truth.
And there was nothing I could do about it.
Wow.
They actually had to carry me outside because I was disrupting the class so much.
Wow. Did they minister to you at that moment?
There was people that stayed out there and praying with me, but I didn't know anything that was going on. The only thing I could see was that sin and my sadness and my pain for what I had done to God with that sin.
What you had become. Yes. So what did you do with that anger, that pain, all that I even think you said to me before, jealousy, the whole 9 yards.
All of that was just, there wasn't anything I could do. Just lay there and wail at the top of my lungs. And then all of a sudden, I was numb again.
Wait, what? No.
That feeling of numbness came over me again.
So it came over a second time.
Just like that, like a curtain coming down. And then I had no feelings again, no emotions, no anything.
And you sure this was of God? Because I think almost this is the enemy, to be honest with you.
At that point, started getting more worried because I thought, am I losing my mind? I had never had anything happen like this. I knew it was God because I could tell that it was God
He was working on you.
And I had seen what he had shown me. And so I knew it was him showing me the sin in my life. And so I knew it wasn't the devil.
Yeah, I'm still wrestling with that because I'm saying the devil wants you numb and God wants to wake you up. But, so what did you do with that? I do believe you.
Yes.
So what did you do with
There
that?
was nothing I could do at the
I
time.
mean, to overcome it.
Yeah, there was nothing I could do at the time. This was all involuntary. This was happening to me without me having any control of it whatsoever. And I went numb again, and all through that night and into the next morning.
Again.
I was that way. And the next morning was a Saturday morning. I was in Maui, Hawaii, doing this discipleship training school. And in the back of the house, there was a chair. I was sitting in it with my Bible open, thinking I was going to try to read, but I couldn't. I was just in that numb state. When, for the last time, this numbness basically lifted.
For the second time.
For the last time, I had this happen twice. The time where it exposed my heart. I'm sorry. I came back to the class again, and again, that numbness lifted, and for the second time, I saw more. It was even worse, and I had no control. I fell on the ground and began to just wail and sob, and all of this was out of my control completely. I had absolutely no control of it. They carried me outside again. They put me in the yard outside. And this time, they just left me because it was like, what are we going to do with this guy? and I don't know, 20, 40 minutes, I'm out there. And this is in a town, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, wailing, and people are walking along the street.
Did they call the cops on you?
No, nobody came for the cops. They knew that this ministry was there, and there was a lot of pretty crazy things that are happening. But I, same thing, just laid there, just seeing this. I was just seeing it. And in the pain and the anguish I had for hurting God with that kind of sin was just overwhelming. And that's all I could do was bawl.
How old were you at this point?
28 years old. I'd been a
You were
Christian
young
for
still.
21 years at that point in my life.
There's more to this. And then I want to hear how you overcame all that. What's next? Wow, there's moments we're just numb to life and we're not sure how to handle things and how to go from there. But there's good news. If God exposes it, He's going to help you overcome. And that's what is going to be next. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this because it's very different than what you think. People tell me, Barb, I can't hear the voice of God. How can I hear His voice? I used to have a hard time with this too. I spent years learning the difference between my own head and God's voice. When I learned how, my life changed. Transformations that used to take me weeks now only take me seconds. I want to share with you everything I learned in those few years in only 3 hours at no charge. Go to our website, barbtv.org, and sign up for our free course titled Empower a Champion, Hearing the Voice of God. Many of you are struggling in life. There is hope. Our passion is for you to have breakthrough by clearly hearing the voice of God. Go to barbtv.org under the tab Empower a Champion and sign up today. So Richard, here you are. You've been numb now several times.
Yeah.
The God shows more and more and more of what is going on your heart.
Yeah.
How did you end up getting out of it?
Well, the next day, I'm sitting in the chair in the back, and this numbness was on me, and I'm worried by this time. I'm pretty.
And this is in Maui, Hawaii.
Yeah, and I'm starting to get scared that maybe I'm losing my mind because it's serious, and I can't control it. But I can't pray. I'm in this numb state, and as I'm sitting with my Bible, this numbness lifts for the last time, and as it lifts, this time when it left, I had complete amnesia. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know anything. It was the scariest moment in my entire life because I had no idea of anything at all. I'm holding the Bible and I'm shaking so bad that I could hardly hold it. I didn't know it was a Bible. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Just like that.
A single thing, just like that. Everything that I'd ever known was gone. Scared to death. And the only thing I could think of all of a sudden was that there was God. And so I just called out to Him and said, God, help me. All my life I'd been wanting to hear one thing from God, and that is that He loved me. And I'd never heard it. I'd felt it. I had known it in my heart because my parents had told me. The Bible told me. My pastor told me. but I never heard God tell me. And that was the thing I wanted more than anything. And he, at that moment, for the first time, I heard him tell me that he loved me.
Audibly or
In my spirit,
Right.
in my heart. I've never heard the voice of God audibly, but I heard it strongly in my heart and in my mind and soul.
Did he speak your name with that?
He said, yes, Richard,
Yep.
I love you. And when he did that, everything changed that fast. All of a sudden, because I knew that God loved me, I knew I had a purpose in life. And I knew that nothing else mattered more than the love of God. All the fear was gone. All the insecurity was gone. Everything was gone. I wanted to jump up and run down the road telling people that Jesus loved them, because for the first time I knew he loved me. And I knew I could do that with sincerity. But I didn't even know how to walk. I couldn't get up out of the chair. I still knew nothing except for that God loved me.
You still were in amnesia at that moment.
Still had amnesia, other than that I knew there was God and that he loved me.
Wow. So, like, this is incredible. This is just incredible. He got your attention, and he had to get your attention, and
Yes.
it changed your life.
Yes.
And now you're ready to serve him as you've been wanting and been doing all your
Yes.
life. So now you're a man with amnesia that is confident and knows who he is without knowing who he is, basically because of amnesia.
Yes.
How did that go from there?
At that moment, the only thing I could think of was, like I said, was God and how much he loved me. And one of the things that had happened before all of this was that as a person that had so much insecurity, I wanted to help people. I wanted to share people, but I was always afraid to do that. But I'd do it. I would do it out of just the fact that I wanted to help. But whenever I did that as an insecure person, I would serve them out of my own need. And whenever I did that, that actually was taking from the people instead of giving them. If you've ever been around somebody who comes up and they want to help so much and they want to do things, and when they leave, you feel drained.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Because they
Yeah.
did it all out of insecurity instead of out of total servant-heartedness.
I just had
They
something
don't
like
even
that.
know they're doing it, but it's the people that told me about it called them spirit. I was a spiritual vampire, basically. I was sucking the life out of people without even them knowing, and I didn't know I was doing it. When I heard that, I was so hurt by the fact that I had done this without even knowing it. And that was one of the things, as God told me that he loved me, that I knew was gone. And so I was so excited about the fact that now I could go and serve him and really make a difference in people's lives. At that point, as I began to think about the things that were around me, God would show me a thing, I would remember it. So I remembered how to walk when I thought about it. I remembered, and everything in my life from that point again, when I would run into somebody, I didn't know them until I was face to face with them. And as I opened my mouth to talk, their name would come back, who they were would come back. Every single thing in my life would do that as I began to see it and be connected to it again, except for the fear and all the stuff that was there. That was like locked behind me. And God said, you could turn around and go get it, or you can follow me for the rest of your life. And what I have in front of you is better than what you've left behind.
From that moment, what were the big changes people could see in you?
Oh, everything. I was so different that even my schoolmates would stop and look at me because I physically had changed in my looks. But the biggest difference was the joy that was on my life and the love that was in my heart for the people, because it was a godly love. It was no longer a love that I was trying to come up with on myself. And that love that changed me also, I was able to give it out, and it began to change others around me. And it began to allow me to be able to minister in a way that I had never been able to minister in before.
Yeah. There's people listening to you right now saying, I know who that person is, who you used to be.
Yeah.
What would be some advice for them that you could give them right now?
You're only going to get what you need from God. You can try making it happen. You can try finding things to do. You can serve out of your own strength. all your life, and it's going to do you no good. It's going to only pull you down a path that causes you to have strife and worry and fear. But when you fully give your heart over to God and his love, and just open up your heart for him to love you, to let him pour his love out on you, and to let him take away every single thing that is in the way, he will change you. All that will be broken, and you will be able to walk in a purity and in a love of God for people that you've never imagined is possible.
So true. And I want to let you know that too. There's this verse in the Bible, that's actually what you're talking about. Psalm 139, verse 28 and 29, I think, which says, "Search me, O Lord, and know my heart." And I encourage you to pray that right now. Search me, O Lord, and know my heart. Touch me and know my thoughts. Point out anything to me that offends you, and lead me to the path of everlasting life. And that's what I did. And then the Lord showed me I had a full-blown eating disorder with all kinds of pains and struggles and emotions I needed to work through. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
So we invite the Lord in to do open heart surgery on us.
Yes, and surrender. The only way I got to that point where God was able to actually get in and take away everything that was there and change it was surrender, fully surrendering before God. Repent, surrender, and then abide in Jesus.
If you could describe yourself right now in one word, what would it be?
Man of God that loves Jesus with all his heart.
That was more than one word.
Sorry.
But it is good, a man of God that loves Jesus with all of his heart. And I just want to thank you for being on the show with us today and being humble, vulnerable, and real. And I can see the confidence that the Lord has given you. And I'm excited that you're going back into missions, as you shared with me earlier. And that real you is going to be received everywhere.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If any of you would like prayer or connect with us, or it stirred things loose in you, call us 855-515-5550 or go to Barb TV. God loves you, and so do I.
One time in Sweden, I was invited to a Lutheran priest church. We started driving and the worst rainstorm hit that I had ever seen. And we're in the city looking at the maps, trying to figure out how we're gonna get there. And it was a 2.5-hour drive. We start driving, and in 10 minutes we got there. The Bible is alive.
Right.
It's not dead, it's a living book.
So what you're telling me is what Jesus did before, he's now doing through us today.